This girl was just 18 years old when she took the life of her new boyfriend. Oh, hi there, stranger. Today I'm going to be telling you about the case of Martina Ogonowska. Viewer discretion, as always, is advised. Martina was born in Poland and came to the UK aged 12. I'm not sure of her family situation, but I believe that she came over with her mother and continued to live with her. They settled in Peterborough. Martina suffered bullying at school, and so she didn't have the best start to life here in England. And it did get worse for Martina. When she was just 14, she was a victim of rape, and this caused her PTSD. She had a baby in her teens and she suffered from postnatal depression. She had a, quote, low mental capacity, according to the judge later on. And by age 18, Martina was still not in the best place mentally. She had made some good friends though, and so she did have a social life. So just a couple of days before the event in question, 18-year-old Martina met 23-year-old Filip Jarzkiewicz. Side note, apologies for butchering these names. So Martina met Filip and he was immediately attracted to her and was hoping to start a relationship. And so just a couple of days later, when Martina invited Filip out with her and her friends, he accepted. The plan was to have a drink at Martina's house and then go out to a club. So Martina lived with her mum, but that wouldn't be an issue because Martina's mum was joining in the party. It was Saturday the 20th of October 2018 and the following is Martina's account of what happened. So on Saturday the party starts when Martina's two friends arrive. This is a boy and a girl who are in a couple. So everyone chipped in some money and some booze was bought, a bottle of vodka and a bottle of rum at least. Filip arrived much later in the evening, around 9 or 10 o'clock. He brought a bunch of flowers with him and they all continued to have a drink at Martina's before leaving to go to the Solstice nightclub at around midnight. At some point during the evening, Martina's mother left to return home and she went alone. Martina saw an ex-boyfriend and they ended up having some sort of disagreement. This happened outside of the nightclub, but afterwards Martina was refused entry back into the club. But her two friends joined her shortly after, and so now they just needed to get Filip. The two girls asked the other girl's boyfriend if he would go back in to get him, and he agreed. So he goes back in to get Filip, and then they're all outside of the club together. They get into Filip's car, and he is supposed to be driving them back to Martina's. Instead, Filip drove in the opposite direction at high speed. Martina says she became scared and started to cry, and that Filip laughed at her. An argument ensued between the two and Filip stopped the car and Martina got out. Filip followed Martina out of the car and they continued to argue. Filip grabbed her by the neck and she fell onto her knees, and then he grabbed her again and started touching her legs. Martina's friends got out of Filip's car and confronted him in defense of their friend. Filip apologized and then they all went back to his car. Once inside the car, Martina said that Filip started touching her breast and legs, and so she got back out of the car. And this is where things get a bit confusing because she says she got back out of the car and one of her friends passed her a knife which she put inside of her jacket. It is believed that Martina had the knife the whole time and that she had brought it from her house with her. So Martina got back into the car again where Filip was again acting aggressively. He saw the knife in her hand and he asked her to give it to him, and she said no. She said, quote, I kept saying no, that he should calm down, and it's like he was on me with his whole body. We were shoving each other. He was pulling my hair. I kicked him because I wanted to free myself from him. She went on to say that amidst the fight, she lost sight of the knife and then realised that it was in Filip's chest. She pulled it out and said that she wanted to call an ambulance, but instead ran away with her two friends. Now, this is where the accounts do differ a bit because Martina's girlfriend, the one that had been at her house for the party earlier that day, she said that she had actually picked that knife up off of the living room table and put it into the kitchen because Martina's daughter was running around and she didn't want her to have an accident. She said the next time she saw that knife, it was covered in blood. That same friend said that when they were all back in the car, she was sitting in the back seat of the car with her boyfriend and that they'd been talking to each other and that they'd heard a noise that sounded like a punch. When they looked up, Martina was out of the car running, saying, "Let's go, let's go." And it wasn't until they'd run away from the car that Martina, showed them the knife and told them what had happened. And at that point, they were in a supermarket car park. They got in a taxi to Martina's ex-boyfriend's house. When she arrived there, they cleaned the knife and Martina changed clothes. She sent a message to her mother on Facebook saying, quote, "I fucked him with a knife. The whole knife went into his heart, Mum. What should I do?" And after sending that message, she went and handed herself in to the police station. To be absolutely fair to Martina, she did hand herself in. But to be absolutely fair to Philip, nobody called an ambulance. I'm not a medical professional and I don't know this for sure, but I don't think it would have made much difference because Martina was right. The knife had gone into Philip's heart and he died very shortly after. I mean, there were 3 people there. One of them could have called for help for him. So Martina went to police and she gave her account of the incident, and she said that she had stabbed Philip, but that she'd done so in self-defense. The 2 friends that witnessed the event would give evidence later down the line, and they more or less corroborated Martina's story. Of course, strangers, we have to remember that memory is a fickle thing anyway, but they were all drinking that night and everybody saw it from their own perspective. Even still, most things that they said did line up. And I know you might think that, they were her friends, they would lie for her, but perverting the course of justice is real, and people don't usually want to put themselves in the firing line, especially not just for a lie. Of course, that's not always, but, usually. A murder trial is a big deal, and I can't imagine it would be easy to lie on the stand. And so, no one was disputing that Martina had used that knife to take Philip's life. The issue for the jury to decide was if it was manslaughter on the partial defence of diminished responsibility or if it was murder. And they returned a murder verdict. She had been attacked in the moments leading up to the incident. She had PTSD and other mental health factors that, mitigated the circumstances, but she took a knife to the scene. And as we know, if you take a knife with you and you later use that weapon to take somebody's life, the starting point is 25 years. And so all else aside, that is the starting point, 25 years. The judge took into account all of the circumstances, the attack, all of the mitigating factors, and Martina's very young age. She was still only 18, and he sentenced her to life with a minimum term of 17 years. And a lot of people were unhappy with that sentence, and I get it. She was a very young girl that had only just been attacked. She had post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health conditions, and 17 years is a very long time. But I also do understand the sentence in this case. 18 years old or not, she knew she took a knife with her. Also, when they pulled over, when they were having the argument or the fight and she'd got out of the car, they were in a residential area. According to her own account of the events, she had got out of the car twice and then got back into the car. So she had an opportunity at that point to seek help from somebody or to leave. Also, another thing is that Martina had her friends there. She wasn't alone, and they'd already come to her defense once. I'll tell you what, stranger, the combination of booze and sharps just terrifies me. I see it time and time again. As ever, please let me know what you think of this one in the comments. And if you've stayed with me up until now, then thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.